Hey guys, this is Bruce, and welcome to ConvoCourses podcast, where we talk about all things cybersecurity, specifically GRC, information security side of the house with cybersecurity. And we do this every once a week. We've been doing this sometimes, if we're lucky, twice a week. And before I get started, you guys should know I have a right now for a limited amount of time for the next couple days, free, and for the next week or so, discounted book called ISO 27001 2002 Information Security Management System Guide. It's a breakdown of the information of ISO 27001 2022. It simplifies it, it expands it, and right now it's free for a limited time, so you can download it on Amazon, KDP, and check it out. Try before you buy. And let's get right into this. I want to walk you guys through this book and tell you about ISO 27001 to give you a bird's eye view of what it's all about and explain why it exists and how it can help your organization become more secure. And I'm going to do that by showing you the actual book that I have. So if you happen to be watching me on Facebook, on YouTube, and other platforms, you'll see the book live right now as I walk you through ISO 27000. Well, I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm not going to go into a lot of jargon and crazy details we don't need for this. My job on this one is to help you to understand the why behind it. And if I can do that, then I've done my job. All right, so here's the book, ISO 27001. I'm going to start off by showing you the actual ISO 27001. So first of all, let me explain what it is and show you the actual source that all this comes from. It comes from one source, and it comes from an organization called ISO, ISO. It's an international body that comes together. They're from many countries, not all countries, but from like 170 different countries come together, including the U.S., including UK, including EU countries, all that. Countries in South America and from the continent of Africa, from all over, people come together and they came up with a standard that everybody uses. Now, this international body, they also do standards for engineering, for industrial stuff, for environmental standards. It's so that all of us can do things like have the same quality of aluminum, right? So that everything's compatible. They do it for everything from like screws to like I don't know, microphones to camera standards, you name it. So this international body has a whole bunch of standards that all of us all over the world use. Because if all of us were using different standards, it's just very confusing, right? We won't be able to use the same screws. And in some cases, you actually can. If you've ever gone to another country and they have different outlets, they have different bulbs. You plug your phone or something, or your I know for me, my shaver, I'll go to the Philippines and plug my shaver in, and it's a different standard. I'll go to Vietnam and plug it in, and my shaver breaks or something like that. It's because we have a slightly different standard, and whenever that happens, and sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes you just have to have different standards, right, for whatever reason. But whenever they're similar, there's it's much better for the industries. It allows companies to thrive because they don't. If they wanted to sell screws to another country, they can, because that other country is using the same threading as that's the standard for the international organizations. So ISO 27001 addresses information security standards, and it's all it is they gathered a whole bunch of security best practices of how organizations are supposed to behave, and they put them all together, and then they expressed it in this form right here. Let me see if I can grab the actual form. Here's the standard right here. Now I purchased this one. Now let me just bird's eye view on this one. This standard, if you happen to be watching me on YouTube, and I'll explain it for those who are listening. This international standard is 135 euro, which is about $170. Right? This is not cheap, and it's only about 20 pages. And this is the standard right here. This is it. This is the one everybody keeps talking about. And this is my version of it. I can't share. I cannot. I'm not allowed to. Like, I can't give this away, right? This is somebody's property. I can just show you what it looks like, and here's what it looks like. The official name of it is the Information Security, Cyber Security, and Privacy Protection Information Security Management System. I don't know why they named it this. I didn't name it this. Not the best name, but that's the name. That's the official name of it. And so two international bodies came together to put this together, ISO and IEC. And these are both, they come together and do more than one. This is just one thing that they do. And it's broken up with these sections right here. They talk about these, each one of these are clauses. This 1 through 10 are each clauses that are like, here's, yea, verily, you will do this. And think of it like the 10 Commandments, except they're addressing security, right? And it starts off, for your organization to be compliant with this, you're going to start off with 4, because these other first ones, it describes the scope of the scope of the document itself, different references for the document, and then terms of and definitions. So those are not going to necessarily apply. Well, they're going to apply to your organization, but you might have your own terms to add to it or whatever. So the real meat starts off on clause 4, which is the context of the organization. And then it goes into leadership, and then planning. How do you plan out the information system security management system? The support of the information security management system, and then the operations, performance evaluation, and improvement. Now, if you've been doing security for some time, some of this is going to sound very familiar, and it should be, because when you're dealing with frameworks and standards, all of us kind of use the same. There's certain things that have to be done, right, in every organization. For example, improvements within the organization. Like, in order for us to keep up with IT, we have to continuously improve our system. We have to continuously monitor our system. So you'll see terms like that and ideas like that using different terminology in the ISO 27001. And all I'm going to do is what I'll do is keep this very high level, right? And I'm actually going to show you from my book, because it goes into greater detail on all this stuff, and it doesn't use the jargon that they have in here. I just wanted to show you this book is about 20 pages. Look at that. That's the last page on this. And this is an international standard. So with my book, what I've done, number one, it doesn't cost $170. Number one. And this is not a replacement, by the way, for ISO. If you have an organization, you're like, man, we have to follow ISO 27001. Listen, you should have the organization buy the actual ISO 27001 from the EU. You have to buy it from an EU organization, from an actual ISO organization, and purchase it for your library. But when it comes to, because there might be times when you need to interpret it yourself. So my book is not a replacement for that. Just like what I wrote for the NIST 800, I'm not trying to replace the NIST 800. It's very comprehensive, right? All I'm trying to do is give you a different perspective and give you somebody who's been in the field for a long time and tell you, like, listen, this is how you do this. This is what they're talking about. And this book is 130 pages long. It's going in great detail about each one of the clauses. All right, so let me get right into this. So I'm going to have some downloadables pretty soon. I'm still working on those, and this is really an early release for those of you who do grab it early. I don't have the downloadables just yet, but they're coming soon. So just be mindful of that. All right, so we start off with explaining what the international standards are, why you need to have it, things like that. And so basically the first part of this podcast that I just explained, here's what it is. That's what I'm talking about in the introduction chapter. And let me get into the actual chapter 1. So let's start off with chapter 1. I start off with explaining one size does not fit all with information security. And that means that there's different standards for every organization. Every organization does not have the same needs. And that's one thing as a cybersecurity person, as a GRC person, you have to understand. Different organizations have different needs. Even though every organization is following within the U.S. federal government is following, let's say, NIST 800, they will have different needs within each one of those federal departments. I'm telling you from my perspective, like from experience, like I've been to several different organizations, completely different organizations with different missions and business functions, right? Within the federal government. And they each one, even though they're all following the NIST 800, it's very different how they interpret certain things and how they use certain controls. It's very different. I mean, they're using the same thing. So when they're speaking, I'm like, understand it, but they'll use it differently. And it's the same thing with ISO 27001. There's not a one size fits all. And because of that, you have different things like HIPAA, you have Sarbanes-Oxley, you have PCI DSS, you have different interpretations of the NIST CSF, the NIST 800. They might be using that, and each one of these industries are using these different standards for a reason. And so ISO 27001 is perfect for international standards. It's written specifically for that. And the official breakdown of ISO, even though they call it ISO, nobody calls it the International Organization for Standards, which is the actual breakout of the acronym, but they call it ISO. All right, so let me get through this first chapter here. Let me see. First chapter. Okay, here we go. One of the things in this chapter I want to explain is what it's doing is just like the other standards and frameworks. We're protecting the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of systems within your organization. One of the main things that you want to come away with, like if you understand nothing else about ISO 27001, understand this. It is a breakdown of a process to control the security of your organization, and that is known as an information security management system. Information security management system. And all that means is a fancy word for a process, fancy acronym for it's a process your organization puts together and they follow that process. They have a policy in place. That policy breaks out into procedures, and then you have operations where people in the organization, the systems in the organization, all the assets, all that stuff, everybody's marching to the same beat, and that is designed by it's the same sheet of music is the information security management system, if that makes sense. It's a process that all of us follow within an organization. And ISO 27001 is a prescription for that. It's telling you, you will do this, you will do this, you will do that. And here's the clauses. Clause 1 and clause 4, you do this. Clause 5, you do this. And clause 6, and that's what ISO 27001 is doing. And it's all for the protection of the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of a system. That's what it is. And in that way, if you understand a PCI DSS, if you understand HIPAA, if you understand Sarbanes-Oxley, if you are familiar with NIST 800 and you've been messing with it for some time, you will very easily pick up ISO 27001 because it's doing the same thing. It's guiding the organization in the same path. And that is what chapter 1's all about. It talks about how they break it all down. They break this one down by the Plan, Do, Check, Act. What does that mean? In the beginning, you're going to plan it out. What do we define as an organization, as a ISMS, and as an information security management system? What is our process? The first thing we're going to do is plan. What is our process and how can it suit our needs? With how can it fit in our requirements? And then we're going to actually implement it. We're going to do it, right? Plan, do, and we've already planned it. Now we're actually going to implement it. We're going to actually do what we said we're going to do. And then once it's in place, we're going to check that it's doing what it's supposed to do. We've planned it out. We've actually started to perform it. And now we're going to check and monitor, continuous monitoring what we set out to do. And then lastly, it's the act. We're going to take corrective action and preventative measures and adjust. This is where we go into continuous improvement of our process. So that's the plan, Do, check, act. So the plan, do, check, act, the great thing about this is it lines up with each one of the clauses of the ISO 27001. So there's a planning phase that lines up with clause 6. There's a do phase that lines up with clause 7. There's the check phase that lines up with clause 8 and 9. And then there's the act, which lines up with clause 10. So if you understand this, it'll give you a better understanding. Now, a lot of people, they might mix up where the plan and do, checks, acts line up with which clause or whatever. But for the purposes of this, the clauses line up just like this. You could probably put clause 8 in the do section or whatever, and it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you just need to understand that there's a process that's in place that has to be done like in an order, because you're not going to do before you plan, right? You have to plan first and then take action. All right, so let's go into the second chapter here. And I've got a bunch of pictures and a bunch of infographics in here and stuff to help you understand better if you're trying to explain it to somebody else. And so that is designed to help people out. Now, before you get into the plan, do, check, act, the first thing that needs to happen is the leadership needs to be on board with this. The organization needs to understand what is going on. That's the context. That's clause 4. Clause 4 is the context of the organization. So I would line this one up. If you're familiar with NIST 800, you can line this one up with the prepare phase, prepare, and the categorization phase. So in those phases of the NIST 800, what you're doing is figuring out, what do we need? Right? In the preparation phase, we're like, okay, what we actually need here? What are the needs of the organization? What do we actually need to do? And that's where the clause context of the clause 4 context of the organization comes in, because we need to know, what is our business? Where do we stand in this particular industry? That's what we're talking about. The organization, the leaders of the organization need to understand the context of where they're at, right? It's very, very important, because the context of an intel organization is very, very different from the context of a local media organization. They have completely different missions, and because of that, they have a completely different level of effort for protecting their systems and protecting their systems and their assets and their people. So the context of the organization is very, very important. And in this context, we need to understand the needs and expectations of not only us, but other stakeholders, outside stakeholders, inside stakeholders, everybody who's involved in our customers. What are the needs and expectations? We need to understand the scope of our system, and understanding the scope of what we're doing, of our mission, of our business, we can understand where the information security management system needs to protect. What does it need to protect? And all of that describes the clause 4, which is the context. Now, once you have the context in place, leadership is super important. Now, if you've ever done cybersecurity or any IT for whatsoever, you'll know that you're not going to do a lot without leadership's backing. And so ISO 27001 has a whole section just about leadership being involved with the information security management process. It's very, very important that they're involved from day one, from the first minute that any of this is implemented, because there's so much pushback as an IT person, as a cybersecurity person. There's so much pushback when we don't have the backing of the full-throated, full-chested backing of the leadership. And that's where clause 5 comes in, leadership. And what are we doing here? We're talking about clause 5.1, leadership and their commitment to the ISMS. We're talking about clause 2, the policy, them setting a policy, signing it, and endorsing and pushing that policy. That's clause 5.2. Clause 5.3, the roles, responsibilities, and authorities. Now, if you've done this for some time, IT, cybersecurity, this stuff is sounding very familiar, because if you look at a policy, usually the policy breaks down the scope, it breaks down the mission of the organization sometimes, of what it's supposed to cover, what the policy covers. It's breaking down of the roles, responsibilities, and authority right away. That's what a policy is breaking down, because all of that describes the scope of what we're doing. Now, let's move on to the actual Plan, Do, Check, Act and go to Clause 6. And so another thing you'll notice is that ISO 27001 controls map to the clauses of ISO 27001. So there's the ISO 27002, which breaks down all the controls. It's similar to the NIST 853. NIST 853 has a breakdown of all the NIST controls, right? So NIST ISO 27002 has a breakdown of all the similarly breaks down and categorizes all the controls, families of controls, and explains what each control is. So with ISO 27001, each one of the controls in ISO 27002 maps to the clauses of ISO 27001. So let's go to ISO 27002. Let's go to clause 6, which goes into planning. So planning. So what is planning talking about? It's addressing the risks and opportunities. So in this one, what we're doing is we're performing some sort of risk analysis. We need to figure out what's the landscape of our organization. Where are we most vulnerable? Where are our weaknesses? And clause 6, we're doing the risk analysis up front to figure out what do we protect? What is the information security objectives, so we can know how to plan, right? The more information that we have, the better prepared we can be, and better we can plan for our information system security management system. So planning is very, very important. And so that this whole thing talks about what the organization does to plan to protect their systems with this information security management system. So it goes into clause 6.1, which is actions to address risk opportunities. Clause 6, information security objectives and planning to achieve them. And then clause 6.3, planning for changes. So all of this this goes into greater detail about how you would actually go about doing this. It goes into some of the basics of risk analysis, like making sure you know where your assets are, and then how to find identifying the weaknesses, identifying the risks with those things. That's what this is all breaking down. Because the more informed we are, the more we know what risks that we actually have, the better that we can address and the better plans that we can make to have a great information security management system, right? We need to know where the assets are, how to protect them, and a risk analyst will be able to figure all that stuff and will break all that stuff down. Conducting risk assessments, and then having a report that identifies all your most important systems and where we're weak, and also threats. Like, where are the threats to our organization? And you might be thinking, well, Bruce, threats can come from anywhere. But here's the thing. A DOD's threats are much different from, say, Department of from a healthcare, from a hospital's threats. They have different threats. They have different attacks from different places. Can they both get malware? Can they both be targeted by advanced persistent threats from another country? Can they have their information stolen? Can they be subject to ransomware? Of course. But there's certain things that criminal hackers are going for when they're attacking the Department of Defense versus a healthcare organization. They have a different level of attacks for each one of those. One's kind of a soft target and one's a hard target. And so both of them have different levels, different types of threats will come after one versus the other. So that's planning, knowing as much as possible about your enemy, about yourself, to be more prepared to come up with your plans. Very, very important. You really can't go much further if you don't have the planning in place. And of course, without leadership's backing, you're not going to be able to do any of this. And it goes into the controls that are related to clause 6, and I'm not going to go into those right here. We're just going to go straight into conducting the ISM. What do we do once we have our plan in place? The leaderships come together. They're in agreement on, yes, we definitely need a plan. They developed a plan. Now, how do we do it? Clause 7 addresses the things that you need, the resources that are necessary to actually to implement the actual information security management system. And so clause 7.1 addresses resources. Do we have everything we need? Do we have the money, the time, the people, the skills to do everything, have everything in place to actually conduct what we need to, what we've planned and set forth? And then clause 7.2, competence. This is people, making sure that the organization has people that can actually do the work. Super important. Communication, huge. Internal communication, external communication with stakeholders. Internally, you might depend very heavily on email. You might have a chat system internally. You might have a memo that has to be put out via some alert system on email that goes out to all, that's distributed to all stakeholders within the organization. You might have some kind of notification that has to go out if there's certain threats that are perceived by the organization. Communication is super important to having a really strong information security management system. And then we get into the actual operations. So operations is clause 8. Let me see if I can get down there. Clause 8. And we're just kind of going through page by page this book, and I'm showing you infographics. I'm showing you security controls that are in ISO 27001. And here we are. Clause 8, operations. So what are we talking about with clause 8? So we're talking about clause 8.1, which is operational planning and control. Not only do we have to have planning at a high level, operation planning and control gets into the weeds. How do we actually implement this on systems? What systems do we actually need to purchase? That kind of thing. And what we've already purchased them now, how do we lay it out? How do we do the actual network? Clause 8.2, information security risk assessment. We're going to conduct an assessment on the actual systems that have been deployed. So we're going into greater detail about what is, and this is very similar to what we're doing in clause 6. In fact, we're piggybacking on what we already know from clause 6 of risk assessments or risk analysts that we did in clause 6. And then a really, really big one is your risk treatment, also known as risk response. How does the organization, now this needs to be documented, how does the organization deal with certain things? If we get attacked, what's our response? If our system goes down, what are we going to do? All of this goes into clause 8, 8.3. So in every organization, medium, large, and even small organizations who are dealing with important information, we're talking about your tax information. We're talking about your social security number. We're talking about your credit card information. We're talking about every country all over the world needs to protect your information. So these standards are what they're using. These types of standards are what they're using to protect your information. They need to have documents. They need to have policies that address these things. And so that's where risk treatment is super important. If we have a vulnerability, if we have a 0-day exploit, that means like some malware came out of nowhere, right? Nobody prepared for it. Nobody knows about it and just hits your network. This happens all the time, by the way. And our system is down. What are we going to do? We have to have a plan before it happens. And that's what risk treatment is all about. There's different types of risk treatment. If you have a vulnerability, you can remediate it. That means fix the problem. You can avoid the problem. That means like if we know that there's an important system that shouldn't be on the internet, we don't allow it to be on the internet at all, right? That's avoidance. And then we have plan actions. Different organization calls this different things in the Department of Defense, and in the federal government, they call it plan of action and milestone. But in the private sector, they'll just call it action plans or something like that. It's the same thing. All it is a breakdown of how we're going to address this thing. We can't fix it right now today. We can't fix it within 7 days or within the 2 weeks or whatever. But what's our plan of attack? How are we going to fix it? And we document that and we track it with milestones. So that's a few different ways that you can address. Those are just a couple of different security treatments or risk responses, risk treatments or risk responses that you could do. And those are in clause 8.3. All right, let's keep going here. We're going to go past the do phase and get into monitoring. So chapter 5 addresses monitoring. So what is this? This is clause 9. Clause 9 is performance evaluation. Super, super important. This is gonna this section right here, if you've ever been through an assessment or if you've been an assessor before, is gonna all sound very familiar to you, or it should, because this is dealing with clause 9.1, which is monitoring, measuring, analysis, and evaluation of our information system security management system. So we've put it in place. We've done the planning. We've actually implemented it. It's out there. We've gone to as far as actually putting it in operation. It's out there right now. The security controls are in place. Now, what are we going to do? We have to continuously monitor that system and make sure that something didn't change to remove the security features. And so that's where 9.1 and 9.2 comes in. And this is internal auditing. You might even also have some external auditing where somebody comes in from a third party and actually does a scan or walkthrough of your organization to make sure that everything is as it's supposed to be. And that is clause 9. Clause 9 just goes into great detail about what things that you should have when you're having performance evaluations. And this should be very familiar to people who are SCAs in the government. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is clause 10, and then I'll open it up to questions. But clause 10 is the last one, and this deals with improvement of the ISO 27001 process. So improvement of your information security management system process as a whole. As we go along, not only do we want to continuously monitor, but we want to have continuous improvement of our information system. And this is something that the that NIST 800 doesn't touch on as much. They don't have a section that specifically addresses it. I mean, one might argue that SI2 of the NIST 800 would address this. That would be flaw remediation. That's probably the closest thing I can think off the top of my head, where they're talking about continuous improvement, where you're updating the software, updating the system. But this is specifically referring to updating your entire process, like looking at your entire process and saying, okay, what is there anything, can we identify any places that we have gaps, we have weaknesses, and then how can we improve it, right? And that's what continuous improvement is all about. And it's covering nonconformity and corrective actions. That means what happens if we found something in our information security management system that's not working properly, we're not doing, or whatever reason our organization doesn't lock the front door properly. I mean, I don't know why you do that, but for whatever reason they don't lock the door properly. Like, how can we improve that? Maybe we put a different type of lock. Maybe we put 24-hour manned, so we have a camera system on it, and then we have somebody continuously monitoring that. Maybe the door it's unlocked because it's 24 hours and people are constantly coming in and out. So we've got to figure out what are the corrective actions to fix this part of our process, right? And that's just one example of you could have it in your incident response. You could have it in your continuous monitoring, but clause 10 is all about what are the problems and how can we fix it? And we come back and revisit it. It's not like NIST 800 doesn't cover that, because they do, but they don't have a section that specifically says this. We will, this whole part of this is, I guess, continuous monitoring. The last one would probably be a part of that. Yeah, I guess continuous monitoring would be what you would use for that, as this would be an equivalent of a continuous monitoring portion of it. So that is the NIST 800, the ISO 27001 in a nutshell. And this book right now, for a limited time, is actually free on it's free on Amazon. And that those are the sections that it goes through. It's in layman's terms. It's just explaining what you need to do. You could go buy the ISO 27001 document directly from the EU organization, ISO. It's going to cost you 130, 170 USD. I mean, it's 20 pages long. After you buy it, you're like, why is this 20 pages long? So mine just takes that document and just expands it out and says, look, this is what you need to have. This is what they're talking about. Here's an example of what they mean right here. You know, that's the kind of stuff that this book addresses. So go ahead and pick it up. What I'm looking for is some reviews. Those reviews help me out quite a bit. And that's why I make it cheap for some time. This book is a $30 book, right? It's going to go back up to $30 here real soon. So just go ahead and pick it up. If nothing else, if you don't even want to leave a review, just download the book. That actually helps me too, because every time somebody downloads the book, the algorithm on Amazon sees it and is like, oh, somebody's liking this book. So go ahead and go check it out. Link is in profile. Link is in description below. Go check it out. All right, now I'm going to answer some questions for a little bit. Whew. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let me see here. More questions. I got questions on TikTok. I got questions on YouTube and Facebook. So I see you guys here. Let me answer this first one from William. So William, I did get your resume, by the way, man. I hope that helped out a little bit. And I wish I had more time with it. Actually, it looks pretty good, man. You're doing a great job on there, by the way. Like, I like how you listed out all the standards that you've used, and it looks like you've used quite a bit of the tools. I'm really surprised if you haven't already put your resume out that you haven't gotten contacted yet. Just remember to be very aggressive when you put it out there. Be very, very aggressive. What I mean is put it everywhere, put it on every platform, every job aggregator, put it everywhere, and then apply for different jobs. And don't just take the first job that's offered to you. Don't do that. Like, you need to vet every person who's contacting you, every screener. Don't take the first offer. Don't, like, if it's good, of course, take it. You know, don't, right? Just, all I'm saying is you are interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Don't just, you're very valuable. Your skill set's very valuable. So just keep that in mind. Says, hi, Bruce, how are you? Looking forward to reading your books. I just bought, looking forward to the books I just bought, including ISO 27001. Man, thank you so much. Definitely glad for what you're doing and that I've been able to link up with you. No problem, William. Thanks, man. Thanks for your participation. Larry, thank you so much, Larry. He says, happy ISO Saturday. Thanks, Larry. Let me see. My ISACA mentor mentioned to get the ISO 27001 2022 auditor certification. I've heard of this certification before. I have heard of this certification. It's from ISACA, so I'm not going to talk bad about it. ISACA is a great organization, one of the top tier security organizations. But what I'm doing right now, and I'll look at this live. I've never seen this before, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to go to Indeed.com. And this is a job aggregator, and I'm going to type in, let me give you a control group so you can understand what I'm about to do. So right here, I'm just in search, and I'm going to type in CISSP. Now, notice this. Check this out. Look how many jobs there are for CISSP. Now, this is not filtered. I didn't filter it by days or weeks, but there's about 6,000 jobs, 6,767 jobs. So let's say round up 7,000 jobs. So a CISSP is very valuable, very, very, and I can attest to that. I have a CISSP, and not only am I getting a lot of job offers, but they're high-paying jobs. So it's a high demand certification. Now let's look at Security Plus. This is another great certification. Everybody knows what this is. If you've been in this field for some time, it's very popular. So it says 300,000 jobs. I don't think that's accurate. So that's a little bit crazy right there. So let's just put CompTIA Security Plus. I think it's picking up on just the word security. So let's kind of narrow the search down. That's more like it. 4,000 jobs looking for CompTIA security, right? CompTIA Security Plus is what we're talking about. 4,000 jobs. Now, what I want to do is look at a ISACA job certification. ISACA has the CISA, which is a premier, incredible certification that I currently don't have, but I know some of my bosses have had this one. It's a great certification. 2,000 people are looking, 2,000 organizations, approximately 3,000 jobs are looking for this particular certification. It's a great certification. Let's look at another one called CISM. I'll get to yours in a second. CISM, this is 2,000 jobs. That's about right. Yeah, 2,000 jobs. CISM is definitely a great certification. Now let's look at the one you just mentioned. You said it's called an ISO 27001. Let's just type lead auditor. Lead auditor. I've heard about this from before. It's from ISACA, and I'm seeing about 117 jobs, and that's not a bad thing. And let's see if we can narrow the search down. So the great thing about it is it has a keyword. ISO 27001 is a keyword. You know, ISO 27001. You can put this on your resume saying you understand it. That's a great skill set to know. And look at this. Look at that. There you go, right there. Here's some ISO 27001 compliance consultants, and they're looking for that exact certification. So yeah, this is in demand. It's very, very targeted, like another certification I'm about to show you. Very targeted, but these are high paying jobs. Look at this one. Well, they're looking for somebody who has ISO 27001, who's an artificial intelligence auditor, up to $123,000. Now let's look at that one that's specifically looking for the lead auditor. Let's see how much. I don't know if they put the cost of the salary on here, but let's look to see if that's there. Yeah, up to $100,000 a year. Not bad. Not bad. So this is a high level certification. Here's a senior consultant. Now they're looking for a PCI QSA. Now normally they want a CISSP and a CISA with this one. So that's why this one's going up as high as $148,000 a year, which is pretty incredible. So yeah, that should give you some idea. Like that's no joke. I mean, that's a great certification, sounds like to me. I mean, it's only 117 people looking for it, but let me show you an equivalent certification that has the same kind of thing going on, which I have, the CGRC certification from ISC2. And this one has about 120 jobs. But I could tell you each one of these, even though it's only 120 jobs, whenever somebody contacts me and they want this skill set of the NIST 800, because that's what it focuses on, they're paying me. You know, they're paying me. This is about right. See this right here? This is about right. And I'm not a senior security nothing, but this right here, this 104,000 to 145,000 USD per year, that's about right. And look, they're only looking for, there's only 120 jobs, people looking, organizations looking for this particular position, but that's no joke, and it's remote. I mean, you wouldn't want 100,000 a year working remotely. So yeah, I think that's a great certification. DW. All right, next question. Hey Larry, thank you for that $20, man. I really appreciate you. Larry, brought to you, Liquid Death, brought to you by Larry, Mr. Larry, who's a project manager. If you guys have, huh? Yeah, so he gives me $20 and I use the $20 to buy this. Yeah. All right, so let me go to more questions here. I'm going straight to Larry since he donated this $20, man. I appreciate you. It says, hey, Bruce, great podcast, a wealth of information as usual. You previously compared the CISSP to the GRC related certifications. In regards to the ISO 27001, are specific certs like these more or less valuable than the CISSP in your opinion? CISSP is more valuable, and the reason why is because it's more marketable. It covers more ground. It's more, this is just my take on it, okay? Because I have two of these certs, right? I have literally have a CISSP and I have a CGRC. And the difference between these two is one is very targeted. CGRC, if you have this cert, it definitely shows that you know the NIST 800. You know the NIST 800 well. It's very, very targeted. Whereas CISSP is so broad that you can't, like, I know CIS. Let me just give you an example. I know CISSPs who are auditors. There's CISSPs who are firewall guys. There's CISSPs. My mentor, the guy is one of the most brilliant architects I've ever met, and the guy does mostly networking. His skill set is really but the guy can do anything. But networking is like he's like the Rain Man when it comes to network. He's like super smart with it. But he has a CISSP. So we have a full range. Like, yet if somebody was to hire me to do what my mentor does, this networking genius guy does, I wouldn't be able to do what he does. And I don't think he'd be able to do what I do. So it's just very, very broad. That said, that being a generalist and knowing many, many things in a very large area is more valuable, specifically because the CISSP itself is definitely more marketable. People know what it is. Whereas the CGRC, most people don't know what it is. And even the one we just talked about, the ISO 27001 lead auditor, most people won't know what that let me be specific. When I say people, let me be specific. Most technical recruiters or HR department people are not going to know what a CGRC is. They're not going to know what an ISO 27001 lead auditor is. It's a very specialized certification. The CISSP is more marketed, it's more marketable. And you could, as a CISSP, they could move me from being a policy guy to being purely vulnerability guy to being a SEAM guy or something in the organization, or being a scan guy. Like, they could move me different positions and justify my role there because I have a CISSP. It's almost like having I say almost, right, but it's almost like having a Esquire as a lawyer. It's like when you have that on you, like, people look at it differently, right? And I'm not saying that as deserved or anything like that. I'm just telling you how it is. That's just how people treat it. So it is way more valuable by an order of magnitude. Now, when you're talking about specific things that you absolutely need to know, of course, the specialized certifications are better for you. They're better for you because it will help you to laser focus on whatever you're doing. Like, if you happen to be a network guy, let me qualify what I'm saying. Let me explain why my thinking is like this. For the market, CISSP, hands down for sure. For you specifically, if you want to learn a specific thing, like let's say it was pen testing. So CISSP itself is not going to really help you with pen testing. It might help you get in the door with the job. But I'm talking about, like, when you put your fingers on the keyboard and you're about to do some actual pen testing. If you got something like the OSCP, which is a hacking certification from offensive security, it's way more valuable. I mean, if you're a pen tester, it's way more valuable than the CISSP because it's way more informed in that genre, in that particular part of category of cybersecurity. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, if you had a choice between the two, yeah, get the CISP. Just don't even waste time. Just go straight for the CISP. And if you're new to this, then get the Security Plus, then build your way up to the CISSP. Let me see. I'm looking to learn how to do risk profile. What kind of software is well known in the industry for risk profile? That's a really, I'm trying to understand well, maybe I'm not smart enough to answer your question, but I could just tell you a couple tools that I've used to help to figure out what is the risk level of an organization. There's usually, so I was a cybersecurity risk consultant, and when we would perform risk analysis and get like a risk profile, meaning like to figure out what is the real actual risk of this organization, there were several tools we used. There wasn't any one tool. And just off the top of my head, we used the scanning. We'd go to an organization and we look at their Wi-Fi. We had a scanner for that. We look at their network. Of course, we had a scanner for that. Like we used like Qualys. But there's other ones you could use, right? That's just one. We used a tool to figure out what cyber threat intelligence was out there. We would scan the internet using their name or whatever, and give us back some information. We would gather all this information on the actual risk, and then we would use our expertise to figure out what is the actual level of risk to this organization. Now, we'd have to know. It would show us, when we did this analysis, it would show us their weaknesses. We'd know where what their business essential functions were. And based off of that, we would come up with a risk profile for them. We had like an algorithm that would break down what quantitative risk that they had, meaning you'd have like and I'll just arbitrarily come on. I'm not going to spill the special sauce or whatever. This is like the main thing that they were making money off of. But we'd have a scale of like, 0 being like something with no vulnerabilities, to all the way to 100, a system with all kinds of vulnerabilities, and with no protections in place for those vulnerabilities, with lots of risk, right? Because the risk is the likelihood that a threat will be able to exploit the weakness, right? So we'd come up with a scale of what is the actual risk, like how many vulnerabilities do they have, how many actual threats could exploit that weakness, and do they have anything in place? Do they have any compensating controls? Do they have any security controls in place to protect that weakness? Or did they eliminate the weakness? So do they have a process that will eliminate that weakness? And based on that, we'd give them a score. And we had the tools that we used for the actual scoring was like a content management system. We had a content management system that we would take the score from Qualys, and we take the score from XYZ tools, and then we put them into some kind of into that content management system, and it would be calculated based off of some formula that they had. So the tools that you could use for that, I think Archer could probably do something like that. You could probably use something like I think ServiceNow could do something like that. There's a bunch of tools out there that are like content management systems that will take your vulnerabilities and allow you to put your own calculations of how you determine the risk, and then come up with a score and then display it on a screen for your leadership. I mean, I know that's not like I'm sure you want me to say, oh, just use ServiceNow or something like that, but that's not. I'm just being honest. That's not what we did. Like, it wasn't any one thing. It was a bunch of stuff to figure out what the risk was, and come up with some idea what the real security posture was, right? So it was a little bit qualitative, where it's subjective, but also we had a scoring mechanism that was based off the tools we were using, because the tools themselves, like Qualys and Nessus and all those, have their own scoring system, but it's not a one size fits all, because every organization has a different situation going on. And sometimes they don't take into account security controls that you already have in place and stuff like that. So how many certifications do you have? Okay, this is an easy one. I have like 5 or 6 certifications over the years. I have like probably 10, 12. I don't know. And that's not to brag. I mean, some of them they've expired. And if you ask me something about networking, I mean, I'm pretty dumb on networking now, but I used to be pretty smart on it. And I had a C and A at one time, but I let it expire, so that's no longer relevant for me. I've got CISP. I've got the ones that are currently used, that are currently active. CISSP, CGRC. I use it for NIST 800 risk management stuff. I've got a Security Plus, the old one that didn't expire, so I don't know if you would count that one, but Security Plus, I used to teach it. I've got a bunch of vendor level ones, like I have a Qualys certification for scanning, and then I have one for like what is it called? It's been a while since I used some of them. Anyway, I've got a few other ones, vendor level certifications that I use from time to time. Recorded Future, that's the one I was thinking of. So I have a few. Those are the ones I currently use. Other ones that I don't really use as much will probably be Linux Plus. I mean, I'm any kind of Linux stuff I use. I just don't use it as much. I've got a Microsoft certification, MCP. I've got it's probably expired by now. I don't know. I had I had an A+ certification that expired a long time ago. I had the Network Plus certification that I got it when it first came out, so I don't even know if that's relevant anymore. I've had an Oracle certification. I've had many different vendor level certifications, because sometimes it'd be a requirement when I get to that job. They say, okay, you have to get this certification. Go to the training right now. And I would go to the training, I take it, and then pass the test or whatever. They give me the certification. And so that's where a lot of the vendor certifications came from. It's not some kind of notch in my belt. That's just what happened, right? So probably the most relevant ones I use right now, CISSP and CGRC. And that's about it. Let me see. Let me see. Larry says, so CISSP is more marketable and will get you the job and with the pay. Okay, yes. Once you're in, an ISO 27001 specific cert might get you a promotion or into a more specific position that you have in mind. I would say it's like it really depends. It really depends. And let me explain. Like I'll explain it by just explaining some of the certifications I got. So CISSP for sure, more marketable. Like once you get it, man, there's so many doors open. Of the few things I could point to that really changed my life in a very positive direction, CISSP is one of them. And it's no exaggeration. I mean, I would put it right up there with a bachelor's degree. It was that impactful to my life. So that said, this really doesn't have its only equal would be equivalent cybersecurity certifications like the CASP or like the CISA or CISM. Those are probably equivalent to it. Those are all close seconds, in my opinion, of it. So those get you the job, get you in the door, get you the notoriety, like all that, right? Once you get in, I'll give you a couple specific examples. My last job I had in the private sector, they said, look, they had this great training program. I got in there and they said, these are the tools we use. You have to know these tools. And they said, we use Qualys. You are going to go to a Qualys lab. You're going to go to a Qualys lab. You're going to get these certifications. I had to get like 3 or 4 different ones for Qualys and go through their whole training, know exactly how to run scans, exactly how to interpret it, like all that stuff. And I had to do it. And it was a requirement within the organization for me to get that for that position. And they wouldn't even move me out of training until I got that thing. And I thought that was a great idea. Other organizations, what they'll do from time to time, what they'll do is they'll say, we have this cloud team. We have this cloud team, or we have this pen testing team. within, we're going to hire from the pool of employees we have in our organization. But in order to be on this team, you have to get a CEH to be a pen tester, or you got to get a OSCP to get in this team, right? And you'd have to go to the boot camp wherever you have to, or go it alone, do your own thing, and get that certification under your belt to get on that specific team. And that was like, it was a very, like you had to do that one thing in order to get in that team. And then you would start to, send you on pen testing runs, or they'd send you, if it was a cloud-based one, they say, okay, everybody in this team has to have an AWS certification. And this has happened in 2 or 3 different organizations I've been in, and another big one is, I've noticed with some of the management positions, they'll say, look, everybody who is a manager has to have a CISSP or equivalent, and they have to have a master's degree or some kind of degree. And that's how you get in the door of this management position. And you're going to get a pay bump of X, Y, and Z. So I've seen that happen before. So that's what I've seen happen in the market. Might change by the time you see this video. Like maybe it's totally different for you. Maybe you have a completely different experience. But I'm saying the last 3 or 4 jobs I've been to, that's what they've done. Where you get in the door with a specific, and it might not even be the CISSP to get in. Like Security Plus is fire, by the way. Security Plus is fire. So Security Plus is also great. That will get you on the door. They say, look, you must be this tall to ride this ride. That's the CISSP or the Security Plus or whatever cert. They say, look, you have to be this tall to ride this ride. Otherwise, you can't get in. Then you get that certificate. You get in the door, and they're like, okay, this is the tool we use. We use Splunk. Everybody has to have a Splunk certification if you're going to be on this, if you're going to be running this system right here, because everybody has to know the system at this level. And then they start having you specialize. Or you might even get in the organization. Here's another scenario. You get in the organization and they have all this cloud stuff going on. And every time they start talking cloud, you're like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. So you take it up on yourself to get smart on that particular thing, and you get the certification, and now you know what the hell they're talking about. And that's another thing that's happened quite a bit. So I hope that answered your question, Larry. Let me go back to TikTok real quick. If you guys didn't know, if you happen to be coming in late or whatever, I have a book that's free until Tuesday. And then I'll probably market to like 99 cents for some time. And I do this from time to time as a promotional thing. It's an early release. I'm not actually done with the back end of it. There's some stuff I still need to do with the book. I have these downloadables that I'm developing right now. So it's going to take me a while. So while that's developing, early release, I release it to you guys so I can get some people to download the book, check the book out, give me some reviews, things like that. Those things help me out as an author, as a publisher. So I really appreciate that. It's link is in description. Just go to ConvoCourses.net. Click on that link, the first book there. You'll see it. Click on it. Takes you to Amazon, KDP, and you have access to it. So I've got some other books coming, but those are going to take me a while. These books are not overnight. It takes me a while. I've got to vet them. I've got to talk to peer review it. I got to get it edited. I got to do a cover for it, all this stuff. It's a lot of time, money, and effort to do each one of these. So some of them been in development for like a year. I know I'm like cranking them out, but like some of them literally been in development for a year. I started some of these in 2023, like mid to late, early 2023. And it just now starting to be, done. So that's what's going on with this. So hopefully you guys get some value from those books. Let me see. Somebody said GRC similar to security architecture. I wouldn't really line GRC with architecture. I would say security architecture sometimes has to know some GRC stuff. I mean, usually they have to know some GRC stuff, but I would say as a job, it's a different thing. It's really a different thing. GRC refers to people who do risk, some kind of management type stuff with security or compliance. It's those things, and there's a lot overlap with those things, but security architecture is more like engineering. Those guys usually are more in the weeds. They're the guys who are dealing with like the network maps and figuring out how an enterprise is going to connect together in a secure way. Whereas GRC people are more focused on the processes, the procedures, how as an organization are we going to secure um, our our systems, and how are we going to make sure that all of us are on the same page with the information system, information security management system, the process by which we maintain our security posture. So it's kind of two different things. Is there overlap? Yeah, absolutely there is. Especially a security architect usually has to know GRC stuff. But I wouldn't refer to myself being in GRC. I wouldn't refer myself as a security architecture at all. Is your podcast on Apple? I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it is on Apple. Just look for ConvoCourses. Um, yeah, look for ConvoCourses podcast, and it should be on Apple. It should be on Spotify. It should be on Podbean or wherever you watch your podcast. It'll be there, and I've seen it on. I don't know what's going on, but like I'll put these out there, and then it'll be on like 4 or 5 different platforms I never even heard of, and I'll see my face there. I'm like, I don't remember posting this there, but it's there, and I'm like, cool. I saw it on it's on Audible. Like it's on Audible. I have no idea that Amazon was taking podcasts and posting them there, but it's there. Let me see. Have you heard of a blue team level 1 certification? Yes, I've heard about a blue team, different blue team certifications. Um, this is one of those certifications where you get in there and you're going to get that certification. It's going to enhance your ability to do that specific job. But I don't know how marketable it is if you're trying to get your foot in the door for a blue team type job. I imagine it would if you put it on your resume. Definitely you should put it on your resume if you have it. Have I heard of it? I have indeed heard of a blue team level 1 certification. And blue team, just so if you guys don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, blue teamers out there, but there's a red team, there's a blue team, there's a purple team, there's a white team, whatever. And the differences are between those are blue teams like defense. They're people who manage the firewall. They're people who do cyber defense operations. So they're the security analysts who are watching the monitors. They're people who are making sure that they're watching the system vigilantly to make sure the system is safe. And if something happens, they're responding to a malware attack. They're responding to and preventing ransomware attacks. And then they're doing incident response. So their main job is defense. Red team, on the other hand, is people who attack. These are your ethical hackers or your pen testers. They're the ones on the perimeter of the organization trying to figure out how I can get in. And the reason why they have a red team, like if you're thinking like, why would you hack your own system? Well, think about it. If you can know where all your weaknesses are, right, then you can actually defend those better because you can say, okay, we need to close this weakness. Our red team found this weakness here. We need to close that door. It turns out the back door is open. Or if you jiggle it like this, you can come in, right? Or the windows are not alarmed properly, so somebody could just jump in and sneak in the door that way, and then open the door once they get through the window, right? So that's what pen testers or that's what red team guys are doing, is finding holes, and then the team comes together and patches those holes. So that's a red team versus blue. And a lot of times what happens is these red teams and blue teams, they'll do these exercises to figure out where the holes are and then how to patch them. And then you have other things like the purple team, which is a combination of red and blue make purple, right? So it's a combination of both of those, and they document the process, come up with ways to fix it. They might be the ones facilitating the whole exercise or something like that. So there's different color schemes that people have assigned to the different aspects of cybersecurity and information security. And that's what the colors mean. And a blue team level 1 certification, or is it somebody who's very skilled at blue team exercises or blue team tasks? Okay. Let me see. I'm going through some questions here, and I've been talking for about an hour here. Let me see. Marty Marr, Marty Marr. That's from that show Martin. Huh? Any advice for someone pursuing a master's degree in information systems? AWS Solution Architect, Associate certificates, and what else does he say here? How many years of experience? That's where they get you. Any advice for somebody who's getting a master's degree in information systems? Yes. So I would say to any student, actually, and this is something I keep repeating over and over again, but I'll keep repeating it because everybody needs to hear it, especially you happen to be a student doing IT, doing information systems, and your goal is to get a job on the outside. Don't wait to start. Okay. Don't wait to get a job. Don't wait to do projects. Don't wait until you get that piece of paper to get out there. Do it now. How do you do it now? Should be your question. Get yourself involved, get hands on. Do a lab in your own house. Create a lab where you're building computers, putting them back together, making networks, doing virtualization, doing cloud-based stuff. Do get hands on. So you can put on your resume, I have skills in X, Y, and Z, right? Whatever your specialty happens to be. Another thing would be, if you can, if the university you go to has a program like this, a working student program, or some program where you can participate and help students fix their computers, help remove malware from student systems, do that. Because that's another thing that you can put on your resume. And another thing, if you can, be a freelancer, start your own organization and actually do freelance work on your own, where you're setting up networks or removing malware. I'm saying the same things over because this is the things I did. But there's other things you could do as a freelancer. You don't have to. You could be a coder. Like, you could actually do websites for people. You could find weaknesses in people's software. You could look at source code for organizations. You could, if your cousin has a bakery, set up a website for them. Like, do the security back end for their website. If you what I'm trying to get at is get experience now, and don't wait until you get the piece of paper. Don't wait till you get the degree. Start now, because what organizations really want is they want experience. The what's great about a degree is that degree gets you a level of networking that you will probably not have again in your career, because you can be an apprentice, you can be an intern, and they've got a ton of programs in your university. I guarantee they have. You got to look for it, but they have a ton of programs where you can actually participate right now in building up your resume, because you're trying to make yourself marketable. The whole purpose of you going to school, aside from you learning what you need to know to be an information security person or information systems manager or whatever, is, besides you getting the skill, the knowledge in your head, is actually make yourself more marketable to these employers, or even start your own business. If you're getting if you're getting a bachelor's degree or master's degree, you should really consider being a freelancer on your own. Try it on your own for some time. Get out of your comfort zone. Start your own business where you're actually doing IT for people in your community, for people around you, for organizations, local organizations, for families, for friends. Like, be a freelancer. At the least, you can put that on your resume. At the best, maybe it goes really well and you don't need to work for anybody else. You could just do that on your own and start hiring other people to help you out. So that's my advice to you. Step out of your comfort zone. And I'm not telling you nothing I didn't do myself. I was in the military. So the military is where I got my start. But when I got out of the military, one of the things I noticed was I got really disillusioned by corporate America, because I feel like It's not like it used to be, right? They don't really take care. You're kind of a number, and I don't want to disparage. I mean, I'm getting paid pretty good, right? So I can't complain too much, but it, I have to worry about like what's going to happen when I'm no longer doing IT stuff. Like what happens then? I can't do this I don't want to do this in my 60s and 70s. I don't want to. So I got to figure out something else. I got discouraged by corporate America, and I'm like, man, what else? What I need to do something else. And I started to try to figure out like what's going on. I started a blog back when blogs were starting off, like back in like, I don't know, early 2000s. I don't know if you remember, but blogs were like on fire. Everybody was using them and stuff, and it just was a new thing for a hot minute. And I had a blog, and it got pretty popular, and somebody contacted me, and I made like $100,000 off my off that freaking thing I did. Like somebody liked what I did. They had me write something for them, and then I was traveling teaching that thing that I wrote for them, for this other company. So get out there. And that's something I don't even put on my resume, but that's something I did. And you should do it too. Like I said, at worst, you could put it on your resume. At best, by starting your own business, doing your own thing, at best, you might start your own business, and then you don't even need to work for anybody. Or you can work part-time on your business or for this organization, right? So don't wait until you get the piece of paper. Start now. Get the experience now. Take action now, and then put that stuff on your resume, and then you'll be more marketable when you're done with your degree. Before you're even done with your degree, actually. You may have answered this. Any tips for studying for the CISSP? We did answer this before, but I'm happy to answer it again. Me and Ryan, another cybersecurity guy, we did a podcast before, and you can go ahead and watch it. Ryan also has a CISSP and several other high level certifications, way more than me, by the way. He unlocked a secret to studying, and you should really watch that video and listen to what he says there. He talks about cracking the code on certifications by dissecting the actual questions themselves on the CISSP and other certifications, by the way. So watch that one. I could tell you what I did. And what I did was I studied for about a year for the CISSP, but I did it in small increments. Every day I'd take an hour of my time, devote 1 hour or two to just studying the CISSP. And what I would do is I would transcribe all the main portions of the CISSP so I can understand it in the way I talk. Does that make sense? Like all of us have like a way of speaking and understanding, right? So I wanted to understand it in my own words. And so what I would do is take the main portions of each one of the domains of the CISSP and each one of the sections of those domains and transcribe it into a notebook. And that notebook, if you're writing, it just gets very tedious. So you got to stay to the point. You can't write a whole bunch of nonsense. So if you already know stuff, you're not going to put it in there. You're going to only put stuff that is it's going to take you a while to get it. Like for me, my weakness continues to be cryptocurrency, cryptography. So cryptography is something that I wasn't really smart on. So I would do like copious notes on cryptography, some of the cryptological modules, some of the ones that are legacy and no longer being used. I would put those in there and I would memorize, I would use my notes to memorize. That's how I studied the CISSP, and it really worked for me. I passed the first time. Now, granted, it took me all 5 hours to pass it, right? But I did pass it, and I think I kind of overstudied. Another thing I would advise you to do, aside from like taking the notes and transcribing from a book, and it doesn't matter what book, they all pretty much have the same information as long as it's the most current version of the CISSP, because I took mine many years ago. Another thing you want to do is get a lot of questions. Get yourself a large database of questions and just keep going through those questions. You can find those in the books. Like whenever you buy the CISSP book, make sure it's a book that has the questions in the back, like practice questions that you can go to, because you want to get your mind ready to answer those questions. And the questions were very difficult because they'll have 4 options, multiple choice options, and then they'd have 2 that were you can they have at least one that you can throw out. Like this one has nothing to do with this question, but they'll have like 2 or 3 that were very similar, and you had to figure out what's the most relevant to that question, the most right answer. That's the hard part about the CISSP, I think. So get a lot of questions, take lots of notes, and learn in many different ways. Like use video, use reading, use audiobooks if that's how you learn. Another thing I would say is figure out what ways that you learn and focus on that. Like me, tactile learning is my best. That means writing things down. For whatever reason, if I write something down, I really remember it. Whereas audio, I have to listen to something 10 times before it clicks. Videos help. Visual. I'm more of a visual learner. So whatever your method of learning is, use that. And go back and watch that podcast with me and Ryan, where Ryan talks about, he goes into great detail about how he learned how they write the questions and how he took the question. It's always great to have 2 different or 3 or 4 different perspectives on how to go about studying and mastering this information. Hope that answers your question here. Let me keep going. What do you think about AWS? AWS is fire. I think that is great. AWS is a cloud certification from that's AWS is Amazon's cloud solution. And I don't know if you're talking about the certification, but AWS, let's talk about both. Okay, so AWS solution, here's why it's fire. Let me just show you real quick with data. All right, so what I want to show you here or talk about is the cloud market itself. When we say cloud, we're talking about organizations who provide a service and a data center where you don't have to house the data center, you don't have to protect the data center, you don't have to give power or resources or maintenance to the center. It's somewhere else, and you don't have to worry about that. All you worry about is your content in that data center. And Amazon has a solution for it. Google has a solution for it. Oracle has a solution for it. Who else? Alibaba has a solution for it. And many other big players. Microsoft is a big one I didn't mention, but they all have these huge solutions for cloud. They store your data. They allow you to manage your data. They allow you to do processing, networking of your data. They allow you to do all these things on their platform. That's what cloud technology is. And now the networking is so fast, and now we have broadband, and it's much, much faster than it used to be. It allows this technology to flourish. And the reason why I say AWS is one of the best is because they have one of the largest market shares of this industry. And let me see. They have, like, this is a 2 billion. I'm just reading some of the statistics off of this. It's a $2 billion industry, right? Or I'd say it's way more than that. This might be a little bit light on those numbers, but it's a $2 billion industry. And check this out. I'm showing my screen here. And this is coming from an article about cloud market shares in 2023. And out of this huge $2 billion cloud market, Amazon holds about 34% of this market, followed by Azure, which is Microsoft, who holds 21% of the market. And then Google, 10%. Isn't that crazy? They destroyed Google in cloud. Destroyed Google in cloud. And cloud, think about it. Google has if you use Google Drive, that's freaking Google. I mean, if you lose G Drive is Google, and several other huge. Gmail uses their cloud technology. That's how big Amazon is. Amazon's way bigger. And the reason why is because Netflix uses AWS. Several different B2B large organizations use their services, and that's why they're so much larger. So other organizations is Cloudforce and Oracle's on here somewhere. But yeah, that's why AWS is the GOAT. It's literally they're literally the GOAT for cloud services, cloud technology right now. Um, are they the best? I mean, I don't know about that. It's kind of like McDonald's versus, your local burger joint. Like McDonald's is a multi-billion-dollar restaurant, but I mean, can they beat Bingo Burger? No. I mean, the burger and Bingo Burger is way better, but just McDonald's does it better. And that's what's happened with AWS. That said, when you're looking at doing a certification, it's the same thing. Like the certification that's in the most demand right now is the AWS cloud certification because they hold most of the market share. So if you have that on your resume, you are likely to have more job opportunities because more people use AWS. So I think it's great. Like I think it's a great way to spend your time. I'm trying to type in certificate, but I'm not. My brain's not functioning properly, so I'll leave it alone. Okay, so let me see. How important is knowing and getting hands-on experience for cloud-based services? It's getting more and more important. And to give you some perspective on that, give you some show you the impact of this. The last time I was looking for a job, which was about 2-3 years ago now, right? And I talked about this on the channel. At that time, I talked about it, and I'd done all these interviews. I did probably 7 interviews or something, right? Six interviews. I can't remember. But out of 6 interviews, 4 of those people asked me about cloud. 4 out of 6 asked me about cloud. They might ask me, "Oh, what's your cloud experience?" Or "What do you have any?" I see, we're looking for somebody who has some cloud experience with this solution or whatever. I was shocked. I'm like, damn, like what's going on? It's just because so many organizations are using cloud-based solutions. So is it important? Yeah, I would say it's pretty important. If you're in the beginning of your career, like if you're just starting out, it's more important that you learn the basics, like networking is very important. Computer architecture is very important. Like if you're very, very new to this, but it's getting to a point where you can't even talk about computers without talking about cloud. That's how important it's getting. And that's just based off of my experience. And the organization I'm with now, there's so much cloud stuff in the environment. And then at the last job I was at, last big organization I was at, same thing. Like many of our clients were cloud-based clients. So we had to have a whole separate team that just did cloud stuff. And then before that, I was at NASA and we were starting to really ramp up all this cloud technology. As a matter of fact, I was doing FedRAMP for that organization. So yeah, clouds are really, but FedRAMP is the federal government's implementation and certification of cloud technologies. So they don't have their own cloud. They use Amazon and Azure and Google, and it's just vetted through the U.S. government. So that's what FedRAMP is. They just vet those technologies and make sure that they're good if they put their stuff on it. So cloud is important. It's very important to get as much hands-on, know as much as you can with it. Like the more it's kind of like software engineering. You don't have to know it, but if you do know it, it's gonna be a huge help to you, right? You don't have to know it, but if you know it, and I would argue that cloud technology is becoming an infrastructure. So I would argue that it's actually way more important than software engineering, way more important than knowing how to do software engineering. Like it's becoming like a main, like you have to know it, just like you have to know some networking stuff. The deeper you get into this, at least the basics of what cloud is and how it works and stuff. Let me see. Got more questions on. I'm gonna do a lightning round because I'm gonna get off of here in a bit. So I'm gonna answer some questions very quickly. Need 5 years of experience. I wouldn't say you need for what. Oh, for cloud stuff, do you need 5 years experience? I don't think so. Um, I don't think it's 5 years of experience. Sometimes organizations will list 5 years, but they'll use 2. Like if you have 2 years of experience and you can impress them in the interview, they'll still hire you. Somebody says CGRC or ISACA cert. Out of those two, ISO 27001 versus CGRC, I would say. But it depends on what framework you're trying to use because there's two different things. CGRC focuses on NIST 800 and ISACA, ISO 27001 lead auditor is for a whole nother standard doing something totally different. So they're kind of like apples and oranges, to be honest with you. So it depends on what you're trying to do. Which one's more marketable? CGRC. But if you are looking for there's a separate market for ISO 27001 jobs. So still like a separate thing, to be honest with you. Let me see. Lightning round. Certification alone. The certification alone means nothing without experience. Yeah, you really need experience. It's so frustrating being on the outside looking in. Someone with all these certifications can't even get a chance without being in the organization. What about AWS? You just need to. So certifications alone are not going to give you as many opportunities. Let me put it to you that way. Is there a way to get your foot in the door? That's what you need to be focused on. I think some people focus on the wrong thing. And I talk about this a lot. I think people are programmed to chase carrots, and it's just I don't know. I think sometimes like it's very clear, like with life, like it when you're ready, the master shows up. I get that now. I used to wonder like why do some people know stuff and why do some people get ahead and why some people are just not ready because you can tell them the truth and they just don't listen. It's fascinating actually. It's mind blowing. I've told people exactly how to get a job and they just won't listen. I don't get it. I'm like, I'm telling you exactly what I did and it works. And if you do what I say and it doesn't work, then okay, come back and tell me, hey, Bruce, it did not. Like I did what you said, but I'm not getting calls. I'm not getting opportunities. I'm not getting okay. Maybe I was wrong. But I'm telling you, I did this and it worked. What I'm getting at is that certifications alone and degrees or whatever, it's going to help you be competitive. But what organizations are really looking for is experience. So the thing that you need to be focused on, if you're new to this and you're really trying to get your foot in the door and you're serious, only people who are serious. If you're a window shopper, man, do something else. It's because it's not for you if you're not going to take action. I'm just being real. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. But if you're not, if just window shopping and you're just here kind of listening to me rant about, IT stuff, then man, just do something else or just watch for entertainment. But I'm just trying to tell you, you got to take action with this. Right now, if you're new to this, if you don't have experience, you got to try to get your foot in the door. There's a few ways you can do it. One is military. I did that. It was awesome. It's changed my entire life, but it's not for everybody. So if you don't think it's for you, don't do it. Do not do it. if it's not for you. But I did it. It was awesome. I got it. My foot's not only in the door, I kicked the door down after the military. Not for everybody though. There's other ways. There's other things you can do. You can be a contractor. There's a bunch of overseas jobs that will take you with little or no experience with your certification, and then they'll train you on the job, but you got to go overseas. And it might not be a job you want to do. You might be doing help desk. You're like, oh man, I want to be a SOC analyst. I want to be, I'm ready. I've got a master's degree. Like, get your ego out the way. Like, what you're trying to do right now is get your foot in the door. You need to work for an organization and learn how the organization works. You need to be humble enough to take direction and humble enough to learn on the job training. You're going to meet people way smarter than you. You're going to meet people younger than you who's been doing this for 3 years already, who are going to train you, but you got to be humble and listen to them. So that's two things. Okay, military, going overseas. Another one would be willing to travel. Like, there's some organizations they'll take you, but it's a hard job because they're going to want to have you traveling all over the state or all over the city in their vehicle or whatever, or flying you here and there and stuff. But they'll train you. They'll take you. They'll train you exactly what they want you to do. And it might not be a high level job, high paying, high end job. But right now, you're just trying to get your foot in the door. Just get your foot in the door right now. It's a step. You're going to take one step at a time. Just like a staircase, you're going to go up one step and then go to the next step and go to the next step. You got to get your foot in the door first. If you've never done this before, listen to me. And people just don't listen. They're like, oh man, I got certification. I got Security Plus. I'm ready to be a SOC analyst. I'm ready to get a CISSP. Like, bro, slow down. Listen, you need to get your foot in the door first. That's what you got to do. You got to, just like everything, like, you got to pay your dues. Cybersecurity, listen, they're trusting you with the keys to the castle. They can't just hire everybody. That's why there's a high learning curve. It's hard to get people in it because it's like this. It just goes straight up, and then there's this hard learning curve. But once you get there, that's it. You're good. Get your foot in the door first. Look for local jobs. They're not going to pay well, but you're going to be a field tech, help desk type job. You might even be taking phone calls and walking people through how to fix their system. You're going to have to deal with asshole customers. That's part of cybersecurity, by the way, dealing with assholes. Let me just tell you, that doesn't go away, right? That doesn't go away after the help desk. Just so you know, you just got what you deal with at my level is assholes who have power. Which one's worse? An asshole who needs his computer fixed, or an asshole who's your fucking boss? I mean, you just got to learn to deal with that, right? And after a while, the thing is, you just get stronger. That's what happens. So, look, get your foot in the door. Military, go overseas, work. Sucks. You be away from your family. It's not fun, but you will learn a lot. If you can get in, you're very lucky. There's local jobs, local low paying jobs, but they'll get your foot in the door. That's the local help desk, field technicians, customer service reps, that kind of stuff, right? But you're getting your foot in the door. You're learning the ropes of an organization. And then another one would be jobs that require you a lot of travel, because those ones are hard to get filled too. Those types of jobs are going to be the first ones. You might have to work for like some of these cable companies, like those cable engineers, those guys who come in and lay your cable, like hook up your router or whatever. Like, those guys are prepped for doing some hardcore getting their foot in the door with networking and other things. But they've got the first step down. So get your foot in the door. Then once you get your foot in the door, work there for a bit. Once you start learning the organization, how it works, number one, you might not even want to do this job no more. I'm just going to be absolutely frank with you. But if you do, you go to the next step. You start applying for jobs, saying, look, I have experience here. I've been working at this place for 1 year. I was a field tech, and we had to learn a little bit of networking. We had to do some stuff with Windows X, Y, and Z. We had to do some Linux stuff. Here's, put that in your resume and then go to the next step. You're going to get hired because you have some experience. You got something under your belt. You can also do freelance work. That's something I didn't even mention. Like if you are very, very good at fixing computers, be a freelancer. Go fix people's local computers. You can put that shit on your resume as experience, as real experience, because you're a freelancer. There's things you can do, but you got to get your foot in the door first, right? It's not just a certification. What they're looking for is people who can do this. They're not just looking for a title. There's not just looking for smart dudes. They're looking for people who can do this work. And that's what you got to do. You got to actually do the work. And I hope that makes sense. I've been telling people what they need to do, and I think people are just programmed. They just want to listen to, oh, if I get this certification or that certification, I'm gonna make six figures, and that's just not how it works. This is not how it works. Not that I've seen. I hope it changes. I hope that maybe somebody could educate me and say, no, Bruce, it's different now, man. All you got to do is get the Google server IT certification and you make six figures right away. I hope so. I hope that happens. That'll be great. I'll get a Google certification. And then, you know what I mean? I don't know, but from what I've seen, that's not how it works. You got to get your foot in the door first. And that's hard work. Thoughts on ITIL? I do not have an ITIL, but I've met a few of my peers have had ITIL. ITIL is a certification. It's like they have an ITIL foundational certification, and that's like the equivalent of it's like a below like A+ certification. It used to be like real cheap. You could get it and you put it on your resume and people would actually look for it. But now it's way more expensive from my understanding. It's an easy test, very easy test, the ITIL 1, but it goes to ITIL up to like 4 or something, like this deep ITIL master or something. Like it has these steps that you have with ITIL. I don't think it's a bad certification, but I believe it got really expensive recently, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. ITIL certifications. Yeah, they have ITIL 4 foundations, ITIL 4 specialist, ITIL 4 leader, and let me see if I can get the image for this thing. I don't know if this one's still relevant, but this is kind of what I was talking about right here. ITIL certification path. Let me show my screen here, and I'll explain what we're looking at. So ITIL, oh man, come on with these freaking ads. Oh my Lord. This does not help you guys' cause. All right, so here's the ITIL certification path. It is sought after. It is a marketable certification. And down here, you have ITIL foundations. And then you can specialize in ITIL. So you've got ITIL specialist, an ITIL strategist, ITIL strategist leader, on up to an ITIL master. And I believe that this ITIL certification, as you build up, can pull in some pretty good money. So let's research that. I don't want to lie to you guys. So ITIL certification, how much you get paid for that? Salary. Watch this. So average ITIL foundation salary in Colorado is $98,000. Nevada, $98,000 USD per year. South Dakota ITIL foundations, $97,000. Iowa, $96,000. So this certification, let me just tell you, what I've noticed about this certification is that most people who have this one also have a bunch of other certifications. So I don't know how accurate this is, to be honest with you. I'm not telling anybody not to get an ITIL, but it just seems like everybody I know who has an ITIL also has like a CISSP or Security Plus or something. And that's why I don't talk much about ITIL. I'm not saying don't get it, but normally people who have it have other certifications, and I think they kind of been riding the coattails of other organizations for quite some time. Because I don't know anybody who only has an ITIL certification. Now I could be wrong, and is making $98,000 a year. They all have some other certification. Every one of them. On the other hand, I do know some CISSPs who all they have is a CISSP, and they're making like 100,000. So CISSP is the truth. I know a bunch of Security Plus people who have just a Security Plus who are making 60,000, 70,000, 50,000 just with a Security Plus, no degree, nothing, just a Security Plus and some experience. Who are making that money. So what do I think about it? It's all right. Like it's okay. It's one of those beginner certifications that I think a Security Plus would. I think an A+ certification would be better with your time, but I could be wrong. I don't recall how much it costs to get the certification. I believe it's pretty expensive. I'm reading another article. It says 11 ITIL certification jobs to consider. Help desk ITIL, network specialist, 62,000 a year. Network analyst. See, most of these jobs you would have a CISS, you'd have a Cisco certification or a Juniper certification if you were a network engineer, right? You wouldn't just have an ITIL certification. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to crap on ITIL, but I'm curious how much it costs. How much does it cost to get an ITIL? How much does an ITIL cost of certification? And I'm wondering if they're talking about the certification okay. ITIL certification costs $500 to $2,500 on average. $2,500. Yeah. Something weird happened. I was going to get an ITIL and I saw how much it costs. I was like, what? Get the hell out of here. Wait, let me show you. So I'm looking at the cost of ITIL. ITIL certifications, and it starts off with $680. Self-study ITIL certification exam is $680, $865, and you get it through PeopleCert. Includes a proctored exam paid directly to the PeopleCert. I guess it's not so bad. $850, $865. And then accredited training. Okay, this is what threw me off. It goes up to $2,500 to get that accredited. I think that the thing with this one is I thought that you had to get the accredited training to get the ITIL. And that's what made me like, nah, I'm not trying to get that. It was way too expensive. And the thing that prompted me to get one was one of my coworkers had one. And it's the first one you get is pretty easy. The first one is really, really an easy test. Okay. I have 0 certs, but 3 years in GRC. Should I get a Security Plus first or specialize in GRC, CISA, C-Risk, or CGRC? If you can do it with 3 years of experience, I would just go for a CISA or C-Risk certification. The reason why is because Security Plus is not bad either, to be honest with you. It's a great certification, but one step above that would be a CISA, a couple steps above it, actually. A CISA or a C-Risk would be better for you. And the reason why I don't mention the CGRC is because it's a great certificate. I have it, but it's not as in demand as a CISA or C-Risk. Those two certifications alone, with just your experience, is going to easily bump your salary up. If you're talking about salary, like if you're just trying to kind of sharpen your tool set, right, it'd probably be a CGRC, which focuses on the NIST 800 or something like that. But if you're trying to upgrade your money, I would highly recommend a CISA or a C-Risk. And you will thank me later, because it's up there with the CISP. And some of these certifications are so in such high demand that as soon as you put that on your resume, it changes your life. And CISA and C-Risk are one of those. Those are two examples of those types of certifications that do that. Can you please type in the chat the name of your podcast? I don't think. Let me see if I can check. The name of the podcast is ConvoCourses. ConvoCourses. It's just ConvoCourses podcast. ConvoCourses podcast, and you'll find me. That is the name of the podcast. And for those of you who are like to listen to it, maybe you have a commute or something, or you're at work doing something, you want to listen to this podcast, just type in ConvoCourses podcast and you will find me. You'll find me on all streaming services. I'm on Audible, free on Audible. I'm on Spotify, free on Spotify. I'm on Apple. If you listen to your podcast there, anywhere you listen on podcasts, you can find. I've got tons of these, and it's just this conversation that we're having right now. And sometimes I have guests. I think next week, I'm going to be talking to Chris from Tech Woke, and we're going to be talking about cybersecurity stuff. So, I'm going to have him on my show, and then I'm going to go on his on the following days. Those are both podcasts. You can listen to us talk about how to get in this industry, how to sharpen your skills, what we did, what our coworkers and our peers did to get in this field, and how we leveled up, and maybe even some like breakdown, like I did in the beginning of this podcast, where I just start talking about ISO 27001. And the things you should know. And I have free stuff that I'll put out there. And then sometimes my peers come on here and they have free stuff. Like one time Ryan came on here, he has a free book on how to do CGRC stuff. It's still out there, if you go catch that old podcast. So this is all about a community of people coming together and sharing our knowledge from our years of experience. Foot in the door kind of certification, Security Plus and CISSP. A foot in the door certification would be like foot in the door as in I am new to IT. So we're talking about two different feet in the door. You know what I mean? So we're talking about like if let's say you are absolutely new to IT and you want to get in you trying to get in this field. A foot in the door certification, meaning how do I get in there, would be if you have to learn IT, CompTIA A+. Why? It breaks down everything you need to know, has a common body of knowledge of all information technology, all the basic stuff you need to know. It's not fancy. It just tells you all the basic things you need to know. And it's marketable. Once you have that on your resume, on your profile, it will help you. Now, granted, you still need to have experience. There's no way around it. You do need the knowledge, right? But you have to get experience. But once you get the A+, once you know how to do this stuff, now you're setting up labs in your house. You're maybe like it's opening up your eyes on like, man, I noticed we have this network at my job. We have this network and they need help there. Maybe you start helping them. Maybe you even start your own stuff. Like you're starting to become way more knowledgeable. So foot in the door for somebody who's brand new with IT, A+ certification. Now, some of my peers on social media, and I just disagree with them. And to be honest, like if I ever have an interview with them or whatever, I will disagree with them. Like they're saying, oh, don't waste your time with CompTIA A+, go straight for the CCNA. Go do the Security Plus, don't waste your time. Listen, those guys who say stuff like that, something's going on. And if usually if you listen to them for a while, there's something going on with them. Like one of them is like, oh yeah, don't do the A+ certification. It's wasting your time. Get the Security Plus, go overseas, get 100,000 a year, whatever. I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. But then she talks about her past. She's like, oh, she was a programmer at age 19. How many motherfuckers are programmers at age 19? How many people are in there, a teenager? I mean, just be real, right? Aside from Elon Musk and fucking Bill Gates, how many people are programming in their teen years, right? Not many. There's some, but that's what she was doing. She was programming and then got a job as a programmer in her as a teenager. How many people do that? Not many, right? So some people are very talented at this. Some people are 7 feet tall and joining the NBA. She's 7 feet tall and she's in the NBA, right? Some people are just talented like that. Not everybody has those kinds of skills. Not everybody has that kind of talent. That said, that doesn't mean there's something that trumps talent, and that's tenacity. And I'm telling you how to do it another way. Like, let's say you're from another field, you got kids, you're coming from retail sector, you've been doing that, you were teaching for 10 years, and now you're trying to get in this field because it's hot and you can make money. I'm telling you, you can still do it. You don't have to be a 19-year-old programmer working from Northrop Grumman or wherever. I'm telling you can do it, and I'm telling you how. Get an A+ certification. Why? Because it has all the stuff you need to know. I did it. It tells you everything you need to know. It opens up your vocabulary on how, because that's the main thing, is your vocabulary for IT. Once you know it, then you can take that knowledge and start and get your foot in the door as far as experience wise. And then you could talk about the working locally for a local IT shop, or going overseas or something like that. Most people are not 7 feet tall and can run a 4-minute mile, right? I mean, like, most of us don't have that kind of, does that make sense? I don't know, man. I'm just talking crazy. Maybe you should just go ahead and get a CISSP and then get $100,000 instantly. Maybe I just haven't seen people do that. I'm a system admin, but want to be remote so bad. Okay. So if this is you, let me tell you how I did it. And this is my last one because it's already been 2 hours. Okay. This is one of my favorite topics that nobody asked me about. And that's cool. I guess people don't want to work remotely, and that's fine. It's not for everybody. What I did, if you're already in IT, now I'm speaking to a specific audience of people. Like, this is for people who are already in IT, been a system admin for a while, been help desk, been a network administrator, and you're like, man, I'm tired of this commute. I want to work remotely. I want to work from home. Let me just break it down to you. Number one, these jobs are way more competitive. Meaning way more people want them, obviously, and there's not as many jobs for remote work. That said, it doesn't mean you can't get it. You can. But you got to be extra aggressive, and be willing to be denied a couple dozen times, because you're not going to, even me with 20 years of experience, I'll go to an interview. I'll go as far as getting all the way to 2 or 3 interviews in for a remote job, and they'll find somebody else, because the competition is fierce. Case in point, you go right now to LinkedIn, you'll find a bunch of remote jobs. As a matter of fact, I'll show you what I mean as I'm typing. Let me see, which one should I go to, Dice or LinkedIn? So it's very competitive. That said, they do exist. You got to be very, very aggressive with it, and be willing to take people's rejection. So let me show you what I mean. Let's type in cyber security. I'm just going to type in cyber security. Did I spell that right? Cyber security. Okay. Comes up with jobs. Let me show you my screen right here, and I'll talk you guys through what I'm seeing. This is my last comment here. All right. So here I am on LinkedIn, and I just typed in cybersecurity on top. Make this a little bigger for you. Now, notice this. It says remote right here, remote jobs. Most dice.com, monster.com, they have a place where you can, it wasn't always like this. You can just click a button and it'll sort all remote jobs. And they have different kinds. You have a hybrid and on-site. That's another thing I want to tell you. They're super aggressive. Like they're very competitive. There's not many of them. And another thing is not all remote jobs are the same. Let me just say that again for the people in the back. Not all remote jobs are the same. What do I mean by that? Some remote jobs are not 100% remote. Some remote jobs require you to stay within the United States. Some remote jobs require you to stay within the city. Some remote jobs they're hybrid. They want you to come in every now and then or something like that. Not all remote jobs are the same. You have a different levels, and most remote jobs, here's another thing, have rules with your remote work. Just so you know that it's not magic. It's not magical. So that said, it's awesome. It's way better than working in the office, in my opinion. So anyway, okay, so now I just sorted on remote jobs. All I did was type in cybersecurity, but it could be whatever. Like you could type in, watch this. You could type in project manager jobs. Watch this, remote. These are remote jobs, project managers. We could type in nurse. Remote jobs for nurses. There's remote jobs for nurses. They have to travel, but here it is right here, remote. Look at that. You could type in, just type in whatever your profession you're trying to do. I'm trying to do cybersecurity, so I'm just going to type in cybersecurity and then find the remote jobs for that. They do have them, but another thing you need to do is sort by time frame, because one of the problems that you have with these job aggregators is they have a lot of old information in there. So we don't want to see that. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort it in not the last 24 hours. That's kind of extreme. And let's say the last week. Let's say last week. You can do last month or the last week. Last week is safer, but last month is going to give you more things to choose from. So I just chose in the last week, and there's still tons of jobs here. There's still over 1,000 jobs here. Now, not all of these jobs fit to what I do. Now, you said you were a system administrator, right? You've been a system admin. Let's type that in. Check this out. System admin. System administrator. Watch this. In the United States, system administrator, in the past week, remote jobs, there are 144 job results. 144. Now, I'd have to know exactly what you did, because system administrator might not be the right keyword, but I just typed in system administrator and I'm seeing 144 jobs in the last week. Now, let me show you something. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click one of these jobs and show you what I mean by they're competitive. So I just clicked this one that says remote PLM system administrator. I have no idea what that is. But if you look here, and it was reposted 1 day ago, and look how many applicants there are. 48 applicants. 48. Now, this is a $120,000 to $130,000 job that's remote. So you know people are trying to get this job. Let's look at this other one. I want to give you some perspective here. This one also posted 2 days ago, and 49 applicants. 49 people have already applied for this job. It's very, very competitive. Here's another one. This is Paraton out of Texas. I used to work for these guys. This one, 2 days ago, over 100 applicants have already applied for this system administrator job, remote. That's how it is. It's very competitive. That said, you can find these jobs. Another thing is what you want to do to get these jobs. I just showed you how to search for these jobs. You want to look on, um, you want to look everywhere. You don't want to just look in LinkedIn. You want to look in Dice, in Monster, in Career Builder, and you want to like the top 10, top 20 type job aggregators. Look at all of them. Google too. Google Jobs. Look there. They have an aggregator that pulls all the jobs in. It's really good. So, and all it's doing is pulling from other aggregators. um, so anyway, so look on each one of those to search. Another thing you want to do is you want to put it right in your resume. You just put remote work preferred. And what that'll do is it'll have people contacting you with remote jobs, because that's what's happening to me. A lot of the remote jobs come to me because people read my profile on LinkedIn or on Monster, on Dice, or wherever, and they saw that I said remote job preferred, and then they say, "Hey, I got this remote job for you. You know, this fits this job description fits your title. Like you, I mean, fits you perfectly. It's a remote job." And so that's what you got to be very aggressive, because these jobs are very, very competitive. You got to apply for a lot of them because they're just very a lot of them on different platforms, and put it right in your resume. Put it right in your resume. The remote work you've done. Another thing you can do, some other tips and tricks. Go to ConvoCourses.net. I have got a downloadable where I break down stuff you should put on your resume if you're looking for remote work, because there's certain things they're looking for. Like what you can do is highlight whenever you've worked remotely with your team. Like I get it. You work in DC, you work in Maryland, you work in Texas, Plano, Texas, wherever, right? Wherever place you're working at in the office. But think about it. Your team is probably abroad. Your team is probably in Arlington. They're probably in California. You probably have some coworkers in California, in New York, and all you guys are using Teams. You guys are using Zoom. You guys are basically working using all the technology that's used for remote work. All that stuff I use on a regular basis for remote work. So you should show that you actually use those technologies. You should show that you're used to working with people from different, who are already remote. Like you guys are you're in the office, but you're working remotely with other coworkers. So there's things that you can say on your resume that explain, I haven't worked from home, but I've collaborated remotely with my peers, and there's no break in the level of care and service we do for our mission. So those are some of the things that you can do. And if you go to ConvoCourses.net, I have like some downloadable where it talks about remote work and what you can put on your resume. What I've been doing, that's all it does, is talk about what I've done, and it's been successful. For the last 7 years, I've been working remotely. And because of my situation where I'm taking care of my kids, I can't really work in an office anymore. Not yet, not now. And I don't want to anymore. I've gotten used to this lifestyle and my work level hasn't diminished. If anything, I work more remotely, because I'm working sometimes early in the morning and late at night. Not that you should do this, but I probably work more remotely because I'm able to avoid the commute. Like the commute it would be like an hour for me. Like in that hour that I'm commuting, I'm working, so anyway, that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've been talking for about 2 hours, and keep in mind, I've got a free book for the next few days until Tuesday. It's free. I'm looking for people to give me some positive feedback on the book, and give me some stars on Amazon. Just the download actually alone and going there and clicking on it is very helpful. Thank you guys for watching. Next week, I'm going to be talking with Chris from Tech Woke, or I'm going to be interviewing him to get some perspective on somebody who's much younger than me. Like some of the younger guys, like I'm sure they have more knowledge than me about the current what's going on if for people who are new coming in this field. So be sure to stay tuned, watch for that. It'll be this time next week. And that's it, guys. I'm out of here. I got to get the hell off of this thing before I go another hour or something. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for all your support. Really, really appreciate it. And I will continue to give you guys free stuff, free knowledge, and all of that. Thank you guys so much. Peace.